my ego would be like, oh yeah, you're the man, right? And you would think you are like the, I don't know, the boss of this planet. And at the same time, you're making like essentially next to nothing, all things considered. Right now, I'm building a marketing agency. But the way to getting to here was not really straightforward. And I wanted to make this introductory video for anyone who would be interested in it. So before I even started like thinking about a marketing agency, so I graduated from university, right? So maybe if I go way back, like my type of life, just for your information, so my type of life was there were always high expectations. Uh, like my parents always expected me to perform really well, and so I graduated top of class, and then went on to study economics and finance in Glasgow, in the UK. I spent there 4 years. Honestly, like I just hated it, but I was doing it only because of these expectations that were set by my parents. Then when I graduated, like I really had no idea what to do next, because like I kind of felt that this wasn't my thing. Like I didn't really believe that working corporate was just gonna work for me. And when you graduate economics and finance, like this is essentially what you sign up for, working corporate. So I decided to go back to my hometown and live with my parents. So I'm from Varna, which is in Bulgaria. I found a job as in a startup, which I was really interested in. And while going to work, like I kind of experienced this rat lifestyle. And honestly, like I was like, is this life from now on? Like, is this it? Is this like all I do? And so, like I just knew like this rat race wasn't for me. I knew there should be another way. And so what I did was like, well, you know how they ask all these millionaires and billionaires, like, if you lose it all, do you think you can get it? Do you think you can recover from it? And essentially, all of them just say yes. And it's like the confidence behind that yes, that really struck out to me. And so, doing this analysis, like I just concluded, well, it's not really in the money on how wealthy you are. It's really in the mindset. And I was like, okay. So at the time, I really had no rich friends, which I could kind of where I could get exposed to that type of mindset. And so I was like, well, what is the next best thing? And an idea occurred to me. Essentially, all of these wealthy people, they do have one thing in common. They like to share their ideas. And so a lot of them actually write books. Obviously, like those books are just part of a large funnel. Because they want you to read the book and then they want you to sign up for a course or something. Either way, like I sorted through through the reviews, and I knew by the way, I'm a really lazy reader, and so I just started using audiobooks. And every time I would go and hit the gym or go for a walk, or while walking to meet up with a friend, I would just be listening to these audiobooks because I knew I had to change my mindset. And back then, honestly, like I was really negative, like extremely negative. To anybody who's in the same place, like you can change that, but it has to be persistent and you really have to want it. And so I started reading like a lot of books on mindset, like entrepreneurial mindset and all of these things. A few books I would recommend, by the way, is the books by MJ DeMarco. So the first one was the Millionaire Fastlane. Then there was the Unscripted. Both of them are good, and he has released more books since then. I haven't read them, but I still recommend him as an author in general. And so I started reading all of these books. And also, like, I was going to work, and honestly, I just hated my life at that point. And so at one point, I decided, well, okay, I'm still going to work. Like, I'm just feeling miserable because, like, the work environment wasn't the best one. And so I was like, I have to start something. And through that time, like I remember I had this, like, I was looking for a flat, and then I found a flat, but like the experience of finding a flat wasn't really nice because of the real estate agent I worked with. Now, honestly, like the guy, what he did was like, so we set up a meeting at 7:30 p.m. after work, and then it was 6:30. Yeah, we set up a meeting at 6:30. So like I finished work at 6, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna wait for 30 minutes for this guy. So 6:30 happens, and I don't see anybody. I don't, because like the agreement was for him to call me. He doesn't call. I call him, doesn't pick up. I wait 5 minutes, call again, doesn't pick up. Another 5 minutes go by, I call again, doesn't pick up. At that point, I was like, well, fuck it, and I'm just gonna go to the gym. And so to the gym I went, and at 7:30, so 1 hour after he was supposed to call me, he's like, yeah, I'm sorry, like I'm really tired, and I'm currently going home. Let's meet tomorrow. Yeah, can you imagine the audacity of the guy? So I just tell him to essentially go away, and I'm not gonna work with him. And he offered me a discount and blah blah blah. Anyways, so this was the experience, and I decided, well, okay, like I would really appreciate if there was a platform where you could find a real estate agent. And so for the next 4 months, I would wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning because I realized I'm very productive in the morning, and essentially I was giving away all of that productivity to my employer at the time, and he wasn't really recognizing any of it. So it's like, yeah, what the hell? And so I started building out this platform, and I got a bit of traction, by the way. Like I had 40 people sign up, and most of them were owners of a real estate agency. So the platform allowed you to rate your own real estate agent. Problem was, like, I had no way to verify these interviews, and I really didn't want to call people who were leaving the interviews, and like I was doing all sorts of things. At one point, I decided just to leave my job because like it wasn't going anywhere, and I wanted to focus on that. Problem was, like, I had probably 4 months in savings now, and I was like, yeah, I have to figure it out. So I started working on this platform, but it's just like it wasn't working out. Like I didn't have the skills necessary. It was like way over my head because like essentially the platform was a marketplace, and in marketplaces, like, you have B2B and B2C clients, and at that point I had no idea how to work with either of those. So it was like way too much for me, honestly, way too much, way over my head. And sometime where I had about 2 months of financial life left, I was like, well, I really have to figure this out. And just by reading Millionaire Fastlane, the book I recommended to you, so the guy MJ DeMarco he had created a forum full of entrepreneurs. Like, it's a wonderful forum. I think it's the Fastlane forum. And in this Fastlane forum, I remember there was a copywriting guy. Like, it was Lex. Like, I don't remember his surname, but the guy was Lex. And essentially, he offered... Well, so, like, I remember one of the threads that I read on there. Like, he is a copywriter on Upwork, or at least at the time he used to be. And he was trying to prove everybody wrong that you can start on Upwork from scratch and be a copywriter in a very in a niche where you have a lot of copywriters in. And so he deleted his Upwork profile and then started again, and he was able to get back to his previous level. So he proved them wrong, and then shortly after he launched a course. And the course was like only $10, and I was like, yeah, let's just buy that. Essentially, the course was teaching you how to create your own Upwork profile, how to write proposals, how to optimize, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, okay, but like, what do I freelance? So since like I was working at the startup as a business analyst, and during my university years, the type of degree was really doing a lot of business analysis and writing reports and all of that stuff. I was like, well, I'm really good at market research at that point. So let's just do that. And I started offering market research. So for the next 2 weeks, like, I would build out a profile on Upwork. And I would be just sending proposals like all day. And so every day I would send about 5 or 6 very targeted proposals. For 2 weeks, like, I wouldn't get I actually got one reply for 2 weeks, every day sending 5 proposals, including Sunday and Saturday. So you can do the math. Like, this is quite a lot. And it's targeted, right? It's not just random proposals, and all of these proposals were customized as well. And I remember every morning I would wake up and I would check my DMs if there was a reply on Upwork. And every day I would wake up and I would not see a single reply. Honestly, it was like very, very taxing on my mind. But I remember just saying to myself, I just have to keep going. This is the point where most people would give up. I just have to persist in the game. And so after 2 weeks, I was able to find my first client at $10 an hour. And like, I remember I did my first $120. This is what I made. So like, I worked 12 hours for the guy. It was like a really simple market research job, and I was very happy with it. So from there on, like, I started experimenting with the pricing. I focused primarily on fixed price jobs. Like, I didn't want to work hourly. I only took the hourly contract just because, like, I needed a review. This is what you need on Upwork at first. And from there on, I started focusing on fixed price contracts, and I decided, I'm just gonna learn to sell myself. I'm not gonna sell my time. And after the 3rd month, I was already getting what I was getting at my startup job in terms of salary. And so then I decided to move out of my parents' house because I had moved in when I left my job. And then the pandemic struck, and I was like, damn. Because at the time, like, I remember I had probably like less than $300, and rent was coming in like a few weeks. And also I had to live, like, I had to feed myself. And so it's like very hard, and you pretty much just started doing all of that. And I remember times were tough and I was just sending proposals out every day and I was like extremely stressed. And so I was doing market research for the next 3 years, essentially, or maybe 2. And at one point, so I started with secondary market research, then I moved on to primary market research. So secondary is like when you just go and find information online, information that is already there. Primary is when you go and have to talk to people. So you have to interview them, you have to do surveys and so on. So it was a leap of faith for me. And at that point, I had already performed several leaps of faith. It's very important to do them, by the way. This is what I noticed. Is every time I would perform a leap of faith, my life would change. Maybe drastically, maybe just a little bit, but usually it would improve. And also, like, you just know internally what the leap of faith is. Like, it has to feel... You have to actually fear it. Like, fear is the guiding mechanism in this scenario. Like, you have to fear it, but you also... You kind of just know that you have to just jump and pretty much rely on your abilities to survive. And so throughout those 3 years, I think somewhere at the second year, like I was already making about, I don't know, probably like 2,000-3,000 per month. But the problem with market research, it is project-based work, like it's not continuous. And so I would go out and send proposals and then maybe I would land like a project worth 7K. But then like I would not have a project in the next like say 2-3 months, right? Because like at one point like I just wanted like those big projects. And so then I signed for a mastermind. So it was Client Ascension, like it's by the Code Email Wizard and Andre and like a bunch of other folks. Like they're all great, by the way. Like I learned quite a bit in there. Essentially, they teach you how to do client acquisition through Code Email and social media. And so like I started like doing the stuff that they showed me, and I was able to close like a really big deal. Like I was able to close like my biggest deal yet. So $15,000 for a single market research project. And it was honestly great. But the problem was like throughout this whole time is I was too focused on the money. And when you're focused on the money, it's just, it runs away from you. And the reason why is I think people notice you are trying to get something from them, and nobody likes this type of person, the one who's trying to get. And so my mentality back then was like, really, I have to just get this, get that, and I wasn't giving anything away. That was like a huge problem. And so after I closed this big deal, then my work suddenly stopped. Like at that point, I had already left Upwork. I was already focusing on Code Email and like other client acquisition methods. Because like it's just like I outgrew Upwork. Like I just didn't like the people on the platform that much. And so my work stopped. I didn't stop my client acquisition efforts. But like, it's just like the replies stopped coming in. I stopped getting on calls. And I was like, what the heck? And so like, I experimented a lot throughout that time. But like, I wasn't fixing my main issue, which was focusing on the money. And throughout my Upwork experience and then the experience like where I wasn't getting any replies to my Code Email so I can book a call with them, there was one underlying issue. So I noticed on Upwork, like every time I would focus on the money is uh, like every time I would essentially stop making money shortly after. And every time I would focus on providing value is when the money would start pouring in. And so like I was in a vicious cycle because I make all these money and then like my ego would be like, oh yeah, you're the man, right? And you would think you are like the, I don't know, the boss of this planet. And at the same time, you're making like essentially next to nothing, all things considered. So it was like a very funny ego thing. And so like right now, well, in the story right now, I'm in the place where I'm not getting replies and I'm like, what's happening? I even had to take a loan out of my friends as well. Because like I just needed money to survive and the other option was just going back to work. And I started looking at the job market and I was like, yeah, no, like this is just too depressing. And I decided I'm just gonna figure it out. And so I started focusing like a lot more on providing value. Like essentially at the time I was developing a market research agency. The problem with that was I would be doing these researches, I would be talking to clients, and so it would be focused on B2B SaaS companies. I just really like the model. The problem with that was you would do the research, they would learn quite a bunch of things, but then they would not implement the knowledge. And this was really unsatisfactory for me because like I would be seeing how to apply it, but they just wouldn't do it. And I realized, well, it is because like I'm doing the research, and when you're doing the thing, you understand it, you internalize it in your own ways. No. And at that point, like the market research was just really unsatisfactory. Like I was making money here and there. When I started focusing on giving value, things changed again. But it's just like this feeling of being unsatisfactory. Like it's just, I really didn't like it. And so I reached out to a previous client of mine, and I was like, yeah, look, I've been developing this market research agency for a while, and I've been going the partnership route. And I was actually able to get it to about 10K a month. But the problem was like, it wasn't consistent 10K a month. It was like I had a few months where I would be doing like, say 10K, and then like I would be doing next to nothing, which was the whole problem. It's the inconsistency, and you really cannot build business on inconsistency. And I'm reaching out to this client, right? And I'm like, yo, like, let me do your marketing for you. So he is a SaaS platform, by the way. And the guy was reluctant initially, but through a bit of negotiation, like he actually gave me a shot. And so I would drop absolutely everything else and just focus on this one client succeeding. And so his marketing was at zero. Like he still had clients. It's just like he had long-term clients, and that is how essentially the business survived. And the first thing we did was market research for him in order to really understand what is going on and how to approach the market. And then the next thing we worked on was the first ever webinar. Mind you, I have not created a webinar before, but I was like so confident in it. Like, I mean, come on, how hard can it be, right? So I just dove in. And like initially I was a bit overwhelmed, but one trick I found, whenever you're overwhelmed, this means you're not clear on your objectives. So what you need to do is get out a piece of paper, write out your goals or the things you want to do, and then segment it on sub goals. So if it's a webinar, right? What a webinar needs? Well, it needs promotions. how will the promotion happen? Well, through emails was how we decided to focus exclusively on the email list. So, okay, so if it's emails, then it needs to be like not one email or two emails. It needs to be like a whole sequence. And you don't market it like once or twice. You need to market it several times, because like you need to stay top of mind. So the whole strategy was like 5 weeks before the webinar's start date, like, is when I would start marketing. And so like it was just one single email, but like every week with a call to action to essentially to sign up for the webinar. The next thing was like I needed to create a landing page. In order to create a landing page, you need the copy, and then you need like the design. So I did all of these things. So yeah, like just lay the things out on a piece of paper, and then it becomes like super crystal clear what needs to happen, and just the feeling of being overwhelmed, it just disappears. Like it's just try it out. So I would be working like on this webinar for the next 5 weeks, and then when the webinar date came, by the way, like this is why I have this microphone right now. Because like I bought it specifically for the webinar. And so the webinar date comes, we do the webinar, and honestly, so like it wasn't anything spectacular, but in terms of numbers, like the numbers were just there. Like we just needed more people to go through it, because in a webinar funnel, you need essentially like the conversions you're looking at is between 5 to 10% ish, and that is like after you optimize it usually. So 5 to 10% is meaning people will convert from a visitor to a customer, well, from attendee to a customer. And in the webinar we did, so we got 280 registrants. This is coming purely based off of the email list. No ads, no nothing. This was on purpose because like we kind of needed to verify the concept. So yeah, like 280 registrants, out of which I think about 20 something percent showed, so somewhere around 25. Like the number was between 60 and 70 people showed up. But like they would show and some of them would drop. But like I noticed like during the webinar, 60 people remained like throughout the whole duration, which was really good. Out of those 60 people, 3 or 4 converted on the webinar, because like we had an offer. Mind you, like all of these things, this was my first time doing them. And so like we would have an offer. It was an annual offer for his software, and 3 people converted, or 4, like I don't remember. Anyways, 3 or 4 people converted. And then on the next day, like I would send out an email to everybody that did not attend but still registered, because like, you know, not everybody can attend the time. And so we got a few people that watched the webinar and then used the client's product and became a customer as well this way. So it was like, it was really working. Like the client could actually see a real return on his investment in me, right? And he was like extremely happy about it, because what it meant was this funnel was working. Now we need to do it again and again and again, and we just need to get new people. And now this is what we are doing essentially. It's just like this time we are going to include ads as well. It's really important. And so but like one other thing that also happened was, so right after we did the webinar, the client decided to join another mastermind. So this mastermind is called SaaS Academy. It's by Dan Martel. It's like really good. And he was like, yo, do you want to join with me? And I was like, well, hell yeah. Of course I want to join with you. It's like exactly the type of place I want to be in. And so right now we are going through this mastermind with him, and essentially we are applying like everything we are learning. So it's like extremely good in terms of what we are learning, because then we can get all of these strategies and just apply them to other clients. And this is kind of how I took the jump from a normal employee to a freelancer, to kind of running a market research agency, to the marketing agency. And so the jump from market research to marketing, it was really interesting, because essentially the whole foundation of like any marketing you would ever do is understanding your customer. And so understanding your customer is really tied to market research. And this is something that right now I'm very knowledgeable in. And a lot of the other agencies that I saw, they just don't do this part that well. They don't understand the client's customer the way that we do. And we're like extremely passionate about this type of understanding, because it's really easy. Like once you understand like what the customer wants to achieve in his life, then your job as a marketer is to help him achieve that transformation. And essentially like the client tells you, yeah, this is what I want to do. And so like if this is what they want to achieve, then you can reverse engineer what they need to know. And this is where you place your marketing. That's it. It's like extremely simple. But yeah, a lot of marketing agencies like are just skipping this part. And yeah. And so right now, like through this YouTube channel, like I essentially want to share my learnings every day. Well, not every day, but more like once a week, I guess, of how I'm growing this marketing agency. Like the steps that I'm going through, the hurdles, like what is going on inside my mentality. And yeah, it's just like this type of journey I'm gonna be sharing with you. So right now, the marketing agency has one client. We are doing, I would say, phenomenal job for him. So yeah, I can tell you, because I'm talking about we, but it's really only me right now. It's just like I know how to hire freelancers, and I know how to find people that are good at what they do. I also have all the frameworks that I would need to do anything marketing related, really. Well, this is related to a SaaS product. And so I'm looking to get one new client, and I want this to happen within the next 3 months, maybe less, because like I will be using cold email, like I'm already using it. And maybe I'm gonna walk you through like the whole funnel in another video. Like it's really interesting, by the way. And so yeah, hopefully this inspired somebody. Maybe if you're going through something similar like me, or it's just like you're interested in following the journey. So yeah, subscribe. I don't know what else to tell you. Thank you for your time.